Doesn't it suck when two of your best friends get into a quarrel? Like, even if the relationship with said friends is completely parasocial on your part and they know absolutely nothing about your existence, sometimes it can still be hard to choose a side. Even if only one really seems to be in the wrong. Hey y'all, Silent Coyote here, and today we're going to be quickly going over the contents of the newest Gamers Nexus video, The Problem with Linus Media Group. Now, if you haven't seen the full video yet, I completely recommend that you go and watch it, and I will leave a link below, but this is my take on it. Okay, so the video starts out with Steve from Gamers Nexus pointing out that he's aware of the LTT tour video, which had some controversy in the past week with hardware unboxed. Pretty much, well, here's the clip.
This is where it happens. The difference between us and somebody like Gamers Nexus or Hardware Unboxed is we test new components, new tests, every time.
Now, this statement isn't necessarily egregious, but as you can see from the slides behind me, Steve was very easily able to disprove this and show that they do reuse data. So if you're going to make a statement like that, make sure it's true. But the majority of this video isn't about the quote from the LTT Labs employee. It's about, well, all of these points right here. But to sum all these points that Steve made up into one major issue, it's that LMG is not taking enough time to make their videos. They're not doing their due diligence, they're messing things up, there's a lot of errors, and they're not correcting them properly. Here's a clip from the original Gamers Nexus video that goes into this a little bit more.
The first clip from an LTT lab tour caught our attention, but it itself isn't worth commenting on. We have something wider in scope we want to comment on, and it's simply that we believe LTT, or LMG, is rushing too much to hit arbitrary and largely self-imposed deadlines that are causing frequent and sometimes significant data errors and information errors. And this conflicts with the ramping marketing surrounding accuracy and data-driven objective reviews that they're pushing for from LTT Labs. So
Steve then goes on to show clips of LTT's own employees agreeing that they need more time for the videos and they always feel rushed and that their videos, they're not particularly proud of the outcome of their videos because of the time crunch that they're put under. And then went on to show a bunch of examples of bad information that LTT has posted in their videos over just the last year. Now, having errors in your videos isn't the worst thing in the world. It happens to every content creator. It happens to me, it happens to Gamers Nexus, it happens to Hardware Unboxed, Jay's 2 Cents, and it happens to Linus Tech Tips. But the issue is how Linus and LMG as a company responds to these issues. And some of these issues have made Steve and myself start to question Linus's ethics. For example, recently they posted a video on the Short Circuit page where the Ponage Stormbreaker mouse was unboxed and reviewed. One of the main issues the reviewer had with the mouse was that it just didn't glide very smoothly at all. But it turns out that the reviewer never removed the film from the feet of the mouse. Now, the issue wasn't the mistake itself, but how it was handled. In the end of the review video, they clearly say that they do not recommend this mouse, and one of the reasons for such is because of its resistance and how well it glided during the test. But since they didn't remove the plastic from the feet, this may have actually changed the outcome. But the issue is they just posted a comment and didn't take down the video. Why not retest the thing? Give it a whole new review. You made the mistake, own it. But instead all they did was post this comment here, which pretty much said that, hey, the mouse is pretty good without the feet, but you as a company need to make it clear that there's a plastic film on them. Linus, you're a tech reviewer, shouldn't you know to look for that? And yes, I get that he's trying to say this from the viewpoint of the consumer, but the point is that this little issue may have drastically changed the outcome of the review, and thus this pinned comment isn't enough because most people don't even look at the comments. A lot of people are just going to watch the video, assume that the mouse was tested properly, and take Linus's word for it. But this does absolutely no good for anyone, nobody involved. Computer mice in general don't have a whole lot of features, and the feel and the glide of the mouse is one of the most important things. So by keeping this video up, you're doing a disservice to the consumer who just wanted an honest representation of the mouse. You're also potentially hurting the company that put a lot of energy, time, and money into creating a mouse like this, just to misrepresent it. But sadly, this isn't even the worst case of it. Are you ready? Are you ready for the worst? I'd say that the thing that has most people up in arms about LTT at this time is what they did to Billet Labs. Back in June, LTT made a video about the $800 solid copper water block made by Billet Labs. This water block is actually a CPU/GPU combination water block where it sits on top of the CPU and then the GPU sits on top of that, so the block is actually sandwiched in between the two, which is a really cool idea. Yes, the cooler does cost over $800, but if used properly, it can lead up to a 20% Celsius degree reduction in your thermal load. But the problem is that it was designed to be used with a 3090 Ti, and LTT decided to use it with an RTX 4090. Now, if you know even the slightest bit about water blocks, you should know that each water block is machined perfectly to fit the dimensions of a certain card, and not many are interchangeable. LTT did ask Billet Labs if they could use the block on a 4090, and Billet Labs said that yes, they could do it, but that they don't have any testing done as they didn't have their own 4090 when they created the block. But what I think Billet Labs was trying to say was, yes, you can go ahead and try this with a 4090, but it wasn't designed for one, and thus they can't guarantee the outcome of using this block with a 4090 because they didn't even have one in stock to test with before they sent this block out. And as you can imagine, this went horribly. It didn't work very well at all. Linus outright says in the video that this is a big waste of money and to not buy it, but then posts a comment and pins it to the video that says this. Hey, after a bit of tinkering post-video, we saw improved thermals with the monoblock. Running Cinebench and MSI Afterburner for 30 minutes, we saw temps peak at 85C on the 12900KS, GPU hotspot 87C on the 4090. Remember, this is without using the proper kit for the 4090. So again, we see a pinned comment on a review video, which the content of this comment could have actually changed the outcome of the review as a whole. If Linus would have tested this properly with a 3090 Ti, which was sent to them with the water block. It's not like they didn't have one in stock, they just couldn't find one. It could have very much changed people's opinions on whether they want to buy this block or not. And when it was brought up to Linus that he should retest using the 3090 Ti, he says it would have been a big waste of money and a waste of time for the people involved to retest something that his opinion on isn't going to change regardless of the outcome. He actually said it would be impossible to retest, which, what makes it impossible to retest? You just got to do it again. He then continues his argument by saying that he was just looking out for the consumer who he doesn't believe should spend $800 on something that, even if it performed as the company said it would, wouldn't be worth it in his opinion. But that's an issue because some people do want to spend top dollar on a custom-made copper water block. There is no problem with that. So if they were going to this, LTT's video for an honest opinion on how this block is going to work, which could have directly influenced whether they bought it or not, they're now going to not buy it based on improper testing. Now, the issue with the water block was brought up to Linus before Gamers Nexus posted this video, and this is what he had to say about it.
But it was designed for a 3090 Ti. Well, we went for gold and we tried it with a 4090. The temperature results were bad. It was clear that it wasn't making perfect contact, and so Adam was the writer on that project. What Adam asked is if we could spend more time, put the 3090 Ti on it, and get real results. And what I told him was no. Because, and guys, come on, like, for real, okay? It's $800 US. I don't know, guys. I'm not sure if I can apologize for not spending another $100, $200, $300, $500 of various people's time.
So instead of apologizing, he just goes on to say that he stands by his decision and that retesting would have costed him a lot of time and a lot of money, and that he's just not willing to do that. But did you put into consideration the amount of time and the amount of money that the people over at Billet Labs have put into this prototype that they decided to send you first out of anyone in the entire world because they wanted you to review it honestly, and you didn't? And that's not even the end of the story. It's not even the end of the story. Now, to add the icing on top of the cake for this Billet Labs situation. Linus was sent a one-of-a-kind prototype. That water block was a prototype, and Linus was the first and only person who had seen it and was able to review it. It was a review sample that Billet Labs had planned to send out to other reviewers. Now, prior to LTX, which is Linus Tech Expo, somebody from LMG had been in contact with Billet Labs and said, yes, we'll get the card sent out to you within the next week or so, you'll expect a tracking number, blah, blah, blah. Well, LTX came up, and it turns out that at LTX, which they were auctioning off a bunch of stuff for charity, which is great, they auctioned off the Billet Labs monoblock, and it wasn't even theirs to auction off. So now, not only did Billet Labs have this doorway to the tech world slammed in their face, but their one-of-a-kind prototype is gone. And though Linus is claiming this is due to misinformation in the pipeline that is LMG, well, it's just unacceptable. There are a lot of people at LTX this year, and what if that monoblock, the prototype monoblock, got into the hands of a competitor who wanted to backwards engineer it and figure out exactly what they were doing over at Billet Labs? Well, it's possible now. And yes, since the release of the Gamers Nexus video, Linus has come out and said that he's going to compensate Billet Labs for the price of the monoblock and whatever it would have cost for them to make it again. But it's just unacceptable that this happened in the first place. Now, Steve from Gamers Nexus was very factual when reporting on LMG and Linus in this video. He made multiple points to make sure that it was known that it wasn't for drama. I mean, he even demonetized the video, just stating that this was for the sake of journalism and nothing else. But Linus did have a response within a few hours of the video, and it wasn't very good. The following response was written by Linus and posted to the Linus Tech Tips website yesterday. Alright, here we go. There won't be a big WAN show segment about this or anything. Most of what I have to say I've already said, and I've done so privately. To Steve, I expressed my disappointment that he didn't go through proper journalistic practices in creating this piece. He has my email and number, along with numerous other members of our team, and could have asked me for context that may have proven to be valuable, like the fact that we didn't sell the monoblock, but rather auctioned it off for charity due to a miscommunication, and the fact that while we haven't sent payment yet, we have already agreed to compensate Billet Labs for the loss of their prototype. That's a lie, but that's fine. At least by the time he posted this comment, he had, I guess. There are other issues, but I've told him that I won't be drawn into a public sniping match over this, and that I'll be continuing to move forward in good faith as part of team media. When/if he's ready to do so again, I'll be ready. Now, this isn't the first time that Linus has brought up the relationship between him and Steve during a time of controversy. Same thing kind of happened during the Backpack Trust Me Bro situation, but it's kind of Steve's job to ignore personal relationships, as that's kind of important for journalism.
It is my job to ignore personal relationships. Yeah, if LMG is going to make false accusations and wants to try and use personal relationships to gain favor so that we don't cover something we think is not okay, it's not going to work with us. We don't play that game.
Now, after going on about the errors in their videos for about 2 paragraphs, which really is unnecessary because out of all the things that LTT is being accused of, the errors in their videos are probably the least harmful to anyone else, and the most forgivable as it happens to pretty much anyone. But they eventually commented on the whole Billet Labs situation. In the 4th paragraph, he says, quote, "With all that said, I still disagree that the Billet Labs video, not the situation with the return, which I've already addressed above, is an accuracy issue. It's more like I just read the room wrong." You read the room wrong? Is that what you're doing when you review a product? "We could have retested it with perfect accuracy, but to do so properly, accounting for which cases it could have been installed in, none, and which radiators it could have been plumbed with, again, mystery, would have been impossible, and also didn't affect the conclusion of the video, or so I thought." This is a very, very confusing little paragraph here. He says, "I wanted to evaluate it as a product, and as a product, if it could manage to compete with the temperatures of the highest end blocks on the planet, it still wouldn't make sense to buy. So from my point of view, retesting it and finding out that yes, it did in fact run cooler made no difference to the conclusion, so it didn't make any difference." What? He then goes on to say, quote, "Adam and I were talking about this today. He advocated for retesting it regardless of how non-viable it was as a product at the time, and I think he expressed really well today why it mattered. It was like making a video about a supercar. It doesn't matter if no one watching will buy it. They just want to see it rip. I missed that. But it wasn't because I didn't care about the consumer. It was because I was so focused on how this product impacted a potential buyer. Either way, clearly my bad. But my intention was never to harm Billet Labs. I specifically called out for their incredible machining skills because I wanted to see them create something with a viable market for it, and was hoping others would appreciate the fineness and craftsmanship even if the product was impractical. I still hope they move forward building something else because they obviously have talent, and I've watched countless niche water cooling vendors come and go. It's an astonishingly unforgiving market." Yeah, it is an unforgiving market, and you are, how should I say this? You are contributing to the unforgivingness of the market for this company by giving a half-assed review. How else am I going to put it? It's half-assed. Half-baked? Does the algorithm like that better? Anyway, he sums up the letter by stating this, Quote, either way, I'm sorry I got the community's priorities mixed up on this one, and that we didn't show the billet in the best light. Our intention wasn't to hurt anyone. We wanted no one to buy it because it's an egregious waste of money no matter what temps it runs at, and we wanted billet to make something marketable so they can, eat. With all this in mind, it saddens me how quickly the pitchforks were raised over this. It also comes across a touch hypocritical when some basic due diligence could have helped clarify much of it. I have a long history of meeting issues head-on, and I've never been afraid to answer questions, which lands me in hot water regularly, but helps keep me in tune with my peers in the community. The only reason I can think of not to ask me is because my honest response might not be convenient. Or it might be inconvenient, rather. We can test that with this post. Will it was a mistake, a bad one, but a mistake, and they're taking care of it, reality managed to have the same reach? Let's see if anyone actually wants to know what happened. I hope so, but it's been disheartening seeing how many people were willing to jump on us here. Believe it or not, I'm a real person, and so is the rest of my team. We are trying our best, and if what we were doing was easy, everyone would do it. Today sucks. Thank you for reading this. What a BS response to these concerns. I mean, damn, I like Linus. I'm wearing an LTT t-shirt right now. I don't have... So what I'm trying to say is I'm not coming into this with a biased opinion about either of them. I appreciate LTT and Gamers Nexus as content creators. I would say that I'm a fan of each of them on a pretty similar level. There's things I like and dislike about both of their content, but that's beside the fact. I think most people would agree that this apology, or rather acknowledgement letter that Linus posted, is BS. It really is. At no point does he just say, like, hey, we messed up, we made a mistake, we're working to fix it, except for when talking about the numbers, which, again, that's just a common mistake that everyone makes in the hardware benchmarking field. There's a lot of numbers involved, and sometimes you just make a mistake. But when it comes to actually hurting another company or the things that people are actually upset about, he just couldn't push himself. He couldn't force himself to even just bite the bullet and just apologize. It seems like at this point, Linus's ego has just gotten so big that he just can't force himself to admit that he's wrong. Instead of just coming out and saying the obvious thing, even if he didn't mean it, just coming out and saying, like, hey, I'm sorry, we messed up, we're going to get better, he has to argue semantics about whether he actually sold the monoblock or just auctioned it off, or just going on and saying things that just make absolutely no sense at all. Now, since the infamous acknowledgement letter by Linus, he has commented again on LinusTechTips.com saying that he's been in contact with Billet Labs, that they gave him a quote for the amount of the monoblock, and that he agreed to it, not even looking into the cost of it, saying that he just wants to make them happy, which is good. But then he also goes on to supply more excuses, stating that this is the first time this has happened in over 10 years, and that it would be unnecessary for him to hire someone in charge of making sure things like this don't happen. Also, Gamers Nexus has posted another video discussing Linus's terrible response to this whole situation, and I will leave a link for that below. But in this video, he gives us a little bit of an insight into the communication between LTT and Billet Labs, and I'll post that now. These are the emails sent from LMG to Billet Labs. June 30th, let me know if you'd like the block back either way, and we can ship it to you with the 3090 Ti. July 6th, we'll send back the monoblock and the 3090 Ti. July 12th, the block and the 3090 Ti should be sent sometime next week. July 30th, the LTX Extra Life auction featuring the Billet block ends. And then early August. So there was a communication mishap, and we ended up auctioning off the monoblock in silent auction for charity at LTX. The good news is that it's not just sitting on a shelf. Apparently after that email, Billet Labs emailed them saying, do you plan on reimbursing us for this? And then they heard nothing. They didn't get a response until the video that Gamers Nexus posted. During all this, Billet Labs has actually been active on the LTT subreddit and posted this just today. Regarding LTT, we are simply going to state the relevant facts. On August 10th, we were told by LTT via email that the block had been sold at auction. There was no apology. We replied on August 10th within 30 minutes telling LTT that this wasn't okay and that this was an X amount of money prototype, and we asked if they planned to reimburse us at all. We received no reply and no offer of payment until 2 hours after the Gamers Nexus video went live on the 14th of August, at which point Linus himself emailed us directly. The exact monetary value of the prototype was offered as a reimbursement. We have not received, nor have we asked for any other form of compensation. During all this, Billet Labs, well, they've been really good sports about the whole thing. They've been posting, they've been saying that nothing will be stopping them, and honestly, they could have done a lot worse. For their prototype getting into the wrong hands, I'm sure there could have been a pretty good lawsuit there, but they decided to just take the money for the block and to just take it as it is. I will say that Gamers Nexus making this video has kind of put Billet Labs in somewhat of a limelight, and I do like to see that, and honestly, I'm going to consider buying some of their parts for my next build, just because of everything that happened. Since then, there have been a bunch of memes posted on Reddit, and a lot of people are saying things like this: if Linus had thanked Steve and GN for identifying all the issues, he would be a legend. Instead, he chose a nothing burger with some defensive criticism for the toppings, which is I completely agree with. And another one here with nearly 10,000 upvotes: why didn't Linus just own his mistakes, apologize, and work to improve LTT's processes? Is he stupid? Well, it's starting to seem like he might be. Obviously, I don't think that Linus is stupid. I think that Linus is a very, very intelligent person, but I think that he lacks certain skills which would enable him to take constructive criticism. I think that his ego has grown so much in the past few years, him being the biggest tech YouTuber, all the money that he's been offered for his company, and I think it's going to his head. And I've seen it in the videos, and now I'm seeing it with a real life situation, and I know it's not just like the facade that he puts on in the videos, but instead, like, he's actually having some serious issues with his ego. It's kind of crazy because there are many instances in the WAN show and in LTT videos where Linus actually says something about owning up your mistake, about doing things properly or not doing them at all. But it seems like he's very willing to say these things to somebody else, but when somebody has to say these same things back to him, he's not willing to accept it. Personally, so now you have all the information, and you might be wondering, what is my take on all this? And frankly, I'm just really, really disappointed. I've been watching LTT videos for years, and honestly, over the last couple of years, I've been watching their videos every single day, not gonna lie. I'm always there for the WAN show, I'm subscribed to Floatplane, I really enjoyed their content. But I will say that over the last couple of years in particular, I have seen Linus's ego grow substantially. I feel like he used to be very humble, and when he did show a little bit of an ego, it was kind of part of his whole shtick, you know what I mean? And it was usually comical. But I don't feel that way anymore. I see Linus do things in his videos, like go really far out of his way just to prove somebody wrong, or to like literally mess up a review or a video just to prove a point. He'll do things like intentionally not read an instruction manual, or just choose to use something janky instead of the included part or adapter, and it just really doesn't make sense. I'm not sure exactly what he's trying to prove. But honestly, when he does stuff like that, it really takes away from the videos for me. But with everything I just said alone, it really wasn't enough to drive me away from watching Linus's videos, because, you know, it's a little something, but I believe that he wasn't at least hurting anyone, you know? Maybe some feelings of his employees here and there, but that's also kind of been part of his shtick, to be like this, like, kind of a douche, but not really, you know? But now, with all this other stuff coming to light, honestly, I feel like I'm kind of put into a weird position. I feel like watching LTT videos is kind of a big part of my life at this point. Like, I'm always waiting for the next video to come out. I'm always watching the WAN show. Like I said, I'm always there live. I own a lot of LTT merch at this point. There's a lot of things, like LTT is pretty tied into my life. I really like the merchandise that they put out. I think that when it comes to the LTT store, they put 110% into everything that they make. And I agree with a lot of his ideas and values when it comes to creating whatever it is that they're selling on LTT store. You know, he doesn't want to make something unless he feels like he can add something to the space. So he's not going to release something unless he thinks that he could do it better. But I do think that some of those values kind of overlap with other ones. And I think that some of the things that make him so successful and such a good businessman are also the things that make him do the things like he's doing here that Gamers Nexus has pointed out. I don't think that his personality necessarily is the reason why he's doing these things in the first place, like the reason that these things are happening. I believe a lot of that has to do with miscommunication and the expectations that he sets on himself, as well as like the deadlines that he sets for these videos for LTT, which are pretty much unnecessary because it's quality over quantity, at least in my opinion. But rather, I think like the way that he apologizes for these things and the way he acknowledges that when he makes a mistake are kind of intertwined with his being a businessman mentality. He tries to claim that he's just a person too. Well, then talk to us like a person. When I showed my girlfriend the letter that he had written, she's like, was this written by a PR person? It really seems like it. I'm like, no, that's just Linus. And for a long time, I could just be like, yeah, that's just Linus. And because it really wasn't harming anyone directly, just kind of it wasn't enough to make me want to stop watching LTT. But this sort of situation, what he did to Billet Labs and all the other issues, and mainly his response, kind of does make me want to take a step back from LTT videos. I think for now, I'd just like to see how this goes. I personally would like to see Linus come out and say, hey, listen, we messed up, and to give more an apology. That would make me feel a lot better about all this. So, for now, I'm just going to take a step back. I'm not going to be obsessively watching LTT videos, but I'm not going to say I'm not going to tune into the WAN show because I want to see his response. I'm going to keep you guys updated, whether it be on here or on YouTube. Later on tonight, I plan to film another version of this for YouTube via the rasterization report. So if you'd like a little bit more information, I know this video is already like a half hour, but the YouTube version should be a little bit longer with a little bit more of my opinion and a little bit more information. If I learn about any new updates, any new comments on this, anything from Billet Labs, Gamers Nexus, or Linus himself, you'll be the first to know. Just make sure you check out my page, subscribe, follow, like, do all that good stuff, won't you? So now that you know my take on all this, well, what's your take? I'm just one person, but I'm curious as to what your opinions are on this. Are you ready to just boycott LTT and say, screw watching Linus videos ever again? Does this make no difference to you and you're just going to continue to watch LTT videos? Or are you maybe thinking about taking a step back like I am? Please, let me know below in the comments and stay tuned for more. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Silent Coyote out.